Lavina stepped out of the old rusty bus with wide eyes and trembling hands. The city was everything her village wasn't. Bright lights, tall buildings that kissed the clouds, fast cars that zoomed like they had no brakes, and a strange smell in the air that wasn't bush or firewood. Her heart danced with joy. This is it, she thought. A new life, a better life. Her mother had cried the whole night before she left, clutching her daughter like it was the end of the world. Please, Clara, she had begged her younger sister, help Lavina become someone in life. Don't let her end up like me. Clara, dressed in fine clothes and smelling like perfume with names Lavina couldn't pronounce, had smiled and agreed. Of course, I'll treat her like my own daughter, she said with a voice soaked in honey. Or was it vinegar? Lavina believed her. Why wouldn't she? Aunt Clara lived in the city. That had to mean something. The first day was like a dream. She was served steaming jollof rice with fried chicken, real chicken, not village fowl that fought for life in every chew. She was given a bottle of cold water. Yes, bottled, and a real glass cup to sip wine, something she had only seen in movies, the kind her mother watched through neighbors' windows. Alima, Aunt Clara's daughter, even let her touch her shiny dolls and sit on her pink bicycle. She rode it once and laughed so hard her cheeks hurt. Alima laughed too, but not with her, at her. You don't even know how to ride. It's so funny watching you wobble like a goat on ice. Alima giggled. Lavina smiled shyly and nodded. She didn't mind. She was in heaven. That night, lying on a soft bed covered in pink bedsheets with cartoon princesses, Lavina made a vow to herself. I will be good. I will be perfect. I will never give anyone a reason to send me back to the village. But unknown to Lavina, that first day, the day of good food, laughter, and glass cups, was her welcome party. Not the welcome, we love you kind, but the let's feed you well before the storm hits kind. Because from the second day, everything began to change. And soon, Lavina would wish she never left the village. The next morning, Lavina woke up even before the birds began to sing. Her eyes were tired, but her heart was full of hope. She had heard the alarm ring on Alima's side of the bed and quickly sat up, watching her cousin yawn and stretch like a princess. Alima began to dress for school in her shiny uniform, her school badge sparkling proudly on her chest. Her socks were rolled neatly to her knees. Her hair was freshly braided, her lips glossy with lip balm. She looked like someone stepping out of a cartoon. Lavina smiled from her own mattress on the floor. Today might be my turn, she thought. Her fingers trembled as she unzipped her bag and pulled out her cleanest dress, a sky blue gown with tiny sunflowers on the edge. Her mother had packed it at the very bottom so it wouldn't wrinkle. She brushed her teeth with the small half-used brush they gave her. She used only water on her face. She had no lotion, no perfume, but her heart was pure and her spirit eager. When she stepped out of the room, her little shoes tapping gently on the tiles, she found Clara sipping tea in the dining room. Alima sat beside her, scrolling through her phone like someone late for a celebrity event. Lavina walked up slowly, her smile wide, her eyes bright. Auntie, she said softly, I'm ready for school too. At first, it was silent, too silent. Clara looked up from her tea, blinking slowly like she misheard. Then she leaned back in her chair and gave a short laugh. Cold, dry, wicked. Come again? She said, raising an eyebrow. Lavina swallowed. I said I'm ready for school too. Alima snorted and burst into laughter, nearly choking on her biscuit. School? She repeated between giggles. She thinks she's my classmate. Oh my God! This is rich! Clara stood up slowly, placing her cup on the table like she was about to deliver a sermon. Lavina, she began, her voice sweet like sugar laced with acid, do you think this is a charity home? Did you see me carrying admission letters in my handbag when I picked you from the park? Lavina's smile began to fade. But, Mummy said you brought me here for school. Oh, yes, Clara clapped once, loud and sharp. I brought you here for schooling, life schooling, the kind of school where you learn to scrub toilets till they shine like your dreams. You'll learn how to wake up before everyone, cook breakfast you won't eat, iron uniforms you'll never wear, and pack school bags that'll never belong to you. Alima clapped mockingly, tears of laughter in her eyes. Welcome to Lavina Academy of Suffering and Regret. Clara moved closer, her face hard. You think wearing your little village Sunday dress makes you a student? You're not my child. You're the help. And the only classroom you'll enter is this house. Kitchen, bathroom, backyard, and every corner where dirt hides. Lavina stood frozen. Her eyes filled with tears. Her lips trembled. But I want to learn, she whispered. Clara laughed again. Then learn quickly how to carry buckets. Because your first lesson today is how to mop the living room floor before we get back, Miss Student. And just like that, Lavina's world collapsed. The city no longer smelled like dreams. It reeked of cruelty, fake promises, and burnt hope. As the front door slammed shut behind Alima and her mother, Lavina stood alone in her sunflower dress, holding back tears with all her strength. She looked down at her feet, then around the large house. So this was her new school. Her classroom, the floor, her uniform, old clothes, her timetable, pain, chores, and silence. And her only reward was survival. From that morning on, Lavina's days became one long punishment written in silence and soap water. She woke up before dawn, always before Alima, always before the alarm. Her new uniform? A faded oversized t-shirt and a pair of leggings. Her new job? Everything. She swept the entire house, mopped the floors until her fingers wrinkled, washed Alima's school uniforms, cleaned the bathroom, packed the trash, arranged Clara's makeup table, which she wasn't allowed to touch, and then rushed to the kitchen before Madam came out, so breakfast would be hot and waiting. Most mornings, Clara didn't say thank you. She only sniffed the air and said, "Humph, at least it doesn't stink in here like the village you came from." If Lavina made a mistake, if the water wasn't warm enough, if the floor had a single speck of dust, if she forgot to close the toothpaste cap, the punishment came fast and sharp, a slap, or hot water splashed on her leg by mistake, or Alima's leftover food flung into the bin right in front of her, while Lavina's stomach is shouting for food. Once she asked quietly if she could read one of Alima's old books. Clara turned slowly and looked at her like she had grown a second head. Are you mad? Those books are for people with brains, not village ornaments. Go read your shadow outside. But Lavina didn't give up completely. When no one was home, she stole quiet moments. She would sit in the kitchen corner with a piece of old newspaper, tracing the letters with her finger. She had no pen, no book, but she remembered her mother's voice sounding out the alphabet with her under the mango tree back in the village. For apple, B for broom, C for cloth. Now it was different. A for Auntie Clara, B for betrayal, C for crying at night with a pillow in your mouth so no one hears you. Still, she whispered each letter like a prayer, hoping someone, anyone, up there was listening. One afternoon, while scrubbing the bathroom tiles on her knees, Alima walked in and laughed. You missed a spot, maid. Lavina looked up, her hands shaking with the brush. I'm not a maid. Alima smirked. Oh no? Then what are you? Lavina opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Because what was she, really? A child with dreams stolen, a stranger in a house full of fake smiles, a schoolgirl, only in her imagination. She stopped answering. She just scrubbed harder. That night, as she lay on her mat with sore hands and tired eyes, she whispered to herself, I'll survive. Even if it kills me, I'll survive. She didn't know how yet, but she knew one thing. She wouldn't let the city swallow her whole. Not yet. Not ever. Months later, time passed like a slow punishment. Lavina stopped counting the days. Her body adjusted to the routine, but her heart never did. Every day looked the same. Scrub, sweep, wash, cry silently. But deep inside, she kept a tiny flame burning. Her dream to learn. One fateful afternoon, while Clara and Alima were out shopping for a new party dress, she stole a quick moment to herself. Her chores were done, the house was quiet, and the kitchen felt unusually peaceful. She found an old, crumpled newspaper near the bin, probably dropped by the driver that morning. She smoothed it out on the counter and began tracing the words with her fingers, sounding them softly like a spell. Economai? Falls, due to, inflation. She didn't understand much, but she was trying, she was learning. What she didn't know was that the old gateman, Mr. Amos, had been leaning by the kitchen window for a while, quietly watching. He chuckled gently. "Lavina," he said. She jumped and nearly knocked over the kettle. "Ah, I didn't know you were there, sir. I'm sorry." The old man waved his wrinkled hand. "Relax, my child. You're not stealing gold. You're trying to read. That's nothing to be sorry about. I know they won't like it if they see me with newspaper, but I just wanted to try. I'll finish my work soon." Mr. Amos's eyes softened. He looked around, then leaned closer to the window. "When you're done, come over to the gate. I want to show you something." Her heart beat faster. Did he want to report her? Was this a test? But there was something in his voice that felt kind, warm, safe. Later that afternoon, when the last plate was rinsed, the floor gleamed, and Clara's perfume had completely faded from the house, Lavina tiptoed toward the gate. She wore her worn slippers and held her hands together like she was going to ask for forgiveness. "Sir, I'm sorry I came late," she said, slightly out of breath. "I tried to finish all my chores before coming out." Mr. Amos stood under the tree beside the small gatehouse, a small book in his hand and glasses perched on his nose. He nodded slowly. "I've been watching you," he said. "Not like the madam watches to punish, no. I watch because I see something in you. Fire. You want to learn. You remind me of my daughter before we lost her." Lavina's lips trembled. "I really want to go to school, sir. I dream about it." He nodded again and opened the book in his hand. "Then let's start. You'll come to me whenever they're not around, even if it's just 15 minutes a day. We'll make it count. But you must promise. You must never tell anyone." Tears filled Lavina's eyes. "I promise, sir. I promise with all my heart." And from that day on, a secret school began, right by the gate. No blackboard, no bell. Just a dusty bench, a caring old man, and a girl whose spirit refused to die. She learned alphabets again, then how to read sentences. She struggled with numbers. But Mr. Amos was patient. "Slowly, slowly," he would say. "Even a tree starts as a seed." Sometimes she would scribble with her finger on carton pieces. Sometimes he would bring her broken pencils or old books from his room. And every time Lavina read a new word or solved a small sum, her heart grew stronger. She was still the housemaid, still the shadow behind Clara and Alima. But in her little corner of hope behind the gate, she was a student, a silent warrior. In no time. They began sending Lavina out more often. Go and buy pepper. Rush to the market for onions. Run to the tailor. She became their little runner, darting from street to street with coins clutched in her sweaty palm. Most times the sun scorched her skin like it held a grudge. But she didn't complain. These errands became her moments of peace, her only escape from the house that breathed cruelty. And then, something strange happened, something beautiful. She started giving. Whenever she passed by anyone begging for alms, an old woman with trembling lips, a blind man tapping his stick, a mother with a crying child, she would pause, her heart pulling her hand. And from the little change she had, she would drop a coin, or the smallest note. Sometimes just 5 naira, sometimes 10. It wasn't much, but it meant everything to her. To give, even when she had nothing. Soon, the beggars started smiling when they saw her. They didn't know her name. But they called her the small angel in slippers. She smiled back quietly. Not because she had plenty, but because she still had something left of herself. Her kindness. But kindness in Clara's house was not a virtue. It was a crime, and Lavina always pays for it. "Where's the change?" Clara would ask sharply each time Lavina returned. And Lavina, barefoot, sweating, trembling, would hold out her small hand with the balance, minus a little. Sometimes she tried to hide it. But that day, she told the truth. I gave 10 naira to an old woman, she stammered. She was crying, Ma. She was really hungry. Slap! Clara's palm landed hard across her cheek. The sound rang through the living room. You gave my money to a nobody? She shouted, voice shaking with rage. Do you know how I sweat to earn every coin, and you're out there dashing it to people who can't bathe properly? Alima burst out laughing from the stairs. Look at her face. Next time, go and start an NGO. Clara's eyes narrowed. For that rubbish, she hissed, you're not sleeping inside this house tonight. Go to the veranda. Let the mosquitoes rock you to sleep. Lavina's lips quivered. Ma, please. Another slap. Speak one more word and I'll use a broom this time. That night, Lavina curled herself on the cold cement floor outside, hugging her knees. Mosquitoes buzzed like devils in her ears. Her nightgown was thin. Her bones ached. But her heart? Her heart whispered, you did the right thing. She remembered the smile on the old woman's face, the way she whispered, God bless you, my child. That blessing kept her warm when the breeze became cruel. That blessing held her tighter than any blanket. And still, she gave. This wasn't the last time. Each time she gave again, Clara found out. The punishment became routine. No food for the day. Kneeling in the sun until her shadow disappeared. Cleaning the compound with a broken broom and no slippers. Locked in the toilet for hours with no water. And Alima? She made it worse. Once, she poured water on Lavina's food and laughed. Since you love feeding beggars, drink that. But Lavina still gave. She still shared. Because inside her, there was something Clara could never slap out. Compassion. Even as her stomach growled, even as her back bent from cleaning, even as her skin burned under the sun, Lavina whispered prayers over every coin she dropped into another's hand. I give this with love. Let it return to me with mercy. Someday. Years later. Time passed. The city changed. The cars got louder. The buildings grew taller. But Lavina remained. Only she was no longer the small barefoot girl that cleaned the veranda or slept beside rats in the corridor. She had become stunningly beautiful, even though she is still treated as maid in the house. Her skin glowed like golden honey under the sun. Her eyes, deep and calm, spoke stories no one had time to hear. Her hair, thick, full, and natural, rested gently on her shoulders. No makeup, no jewelry, no designer perfume. Yet heads turned when she walked by. Men whispered. Women stared. Even those in expensive cars slowed down just to catch a better look. Who's that girl? She's beautiful, yet so humble. But Lavina didn't notice the attention. She didn't care. She walked like someone on a mission, focused, quiet, kind. She had no friends, except for the beggars. Those old wrinkled faces that once called her small angel in slippers now smiled at her with pride. Lavina, they'd shout whenever she passed. Our angel has grown into a queen. And she'd smile gently, bend low, and still give. Sometimes coins, sometimes bread, sometimes just her time. She never stopped giving. They watched her grow, these beggars. Some said she was a gift from God. One blind man whispered once, if beauty had a heart, it would be Lavina. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Alima's life smelled like imported perfume and designer bags. Her wardrobe could clothe a small village. Her shoes were arranged by color. Her makeup box looked like a pharmacy. She attended the best private school in the city, drove in the latest car, and had enough followers on Instagram to fill a stadium. But her beauty was loud. Her laughter? Louder. Her cruelty? The loudest. She drove around with music blasting, windows down, sunshades on, and she had one bad habit. She splashed people with dirty water on purpose. Once, she zoomed past a woman frying puff-puff by the roadside and splashed some into her hot oil. She laughed. Another time, she soaked school children on their way home. She laughed harder. And when beggars dared stretch out their hands, she'd wind down, take a sachet of water, splash it in their faces and say, lazy fools, go and work. The world doesn't owe you anything. then drive off, laughing like a maniac. And the gateman? Old and gray now, but still faithful. He never stopped teaching Lavina. And Lavina? She now read fluently. Newspapers, novels, street signs, Bible, even Clara's secret letters sometimes. She was learning, quietly, slowly, dangerously. One sunny afternoon, the air smelled like perfume and pride. Clara was seated in the living room, legs crossed, sipping her imported juice and watching a soap opera she had already seen 3 times. Alima was upstairs, preparing for another outing. Lashes on, wig fixed, nails long enough to stir tea from a distance. Lavina? She was outside, sweeping the compound. Her scarf was tied tight over her braided hair, sweat soaking the back of her old dress. Dust clung to her skin like it belonged there. As usual, no one offered her a glass of water. Suddenly, the sound of a car engine cut through the silence. A black, sleek car pulled up outside the gate. It was long, shiny, and too expensive for the neighborhood. The gateman, who was taking a nap, almost choked on his own snore. The door opened slowly, and a man stepped out. Tall, handsome, clean-shaven, with eyes that looked like they'd seen a lot but said very little. He wore a navy blue suit, shoes that clicked confidently, and a wristwatch that could feed a village for a week. He looked like someone straight out of a billionaire romance novel. Clara leaped up. Her eyes twinkled. She adjusted her wrapper, wiped her mouth quickly, and rushed to the window. Alima came down the stairs, lips glossy and eyes scanning. "Mom, who is that snack outside?" she whispered, biting her lower lip. Lavina stood at the corner of the gate, broom in hand, dust all over her legs. She turned to look, and their eyes met. The man smiled, a kind smile, deep, warm, like he had been searching for something and just found it. Clara quickly opened the door and stepped out, voice sugar-coated with fake politeness. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome. I'm Clara, Alima's mother." Alima joined, hips swinging like a catwalk model. "Hi there," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Alima. You must be looking for me." The man looked confused. Then, with a polite smile, he asked, "Sorry, I'm actually here for someone called Lavina." The air froze. You could hear Clara's smile crack like old glass. Lavina?" she stammered. "You mean our housemaid?" He nodded, still looking past them, towards the girl with the broom. "Is she around?" he asked. "I need to speak with her." Alima's lip trembled. Her nose twitched. Clara looked like someone just stole her lottery ticket. "But, sir, why her? She's just who I came for," the man interrupted, gently but firmly. Then he walked toward Lavina. Lavina's heart skipped. She held her breath. "Can I have a few minutes of your time?" the man asked gently, his eyes fixed on her with sincerity. Before she could answer, Clara stormed forward like a lioness guarding her prey. "Never!" she snapped. "You can't have any of her time without speaking to me first." The man blinked, then smiled politely. "Oh, I'm sorry, madam. My name is Dave. I work for Mr. Ethan Dorset. He's my boss. He sent me to find Lavina. He wants to marry her, but he insisted she must give her consent first." The earth seemed to pause. Lavina froze, her heart pounding like it wanted to escape her chest. Alima gasped sharply, her eyes widening in disbelief. "Mum," she screamed, "did you hear that? She wants to steal what belongs to me. In your very eyes, she wants to snatch my destiny." Clara's face turned red with rage. She quickly grabbed Dave by the arm and dragged him a few steps away. She forced a fake smile and whispered like a desperate politician. "Sir, please. Lavina is just a maid, a poor village girl with no education, no manners, and absolutely no exposure. She's only good with brooms and dishes. My daughter, Alima, she's the right one. Beautiful, classy, well-educated. Please, talk to your boss about her. If you do this for me, I'll forever be grateful." Dave said nothing. He simply nodded politely and walked back to his car. He glanced at Lavina once more, and that same gentle smile returned just before he drove off. That night, the house turned into a war zone. Lavina wasn't allowed inside. "You want to steal a man with your black face and gutter clothes?" Alima hissed, grabbing Lavina's pillow and throwing it outside. Sleep with the mosquitoes tonight. Clara didn't say a word. She just walked to Lavina, snatched her plate of food, and emptied it into the dustbin. From today, no more meat, no more tea, no more nonsense, she barked. Since rich men now come for you, let your beauty feed you. The next morning, Lavina woke up with body pains. Her skin was swollen from mosquito bites, her stomach empty. Still, she swept the house, washed the dishes, cleaned the bathrooms. Her spirit was weak, but her soul refused to break. She didn't understand why a man like that would want her. She didn't even know who he was. But somehow, deep inside, she knew something was about to change. But Clara and Alima, they weren't ready to let go. They would do anything to make sure Lavina lost it all, even if it meant ruining her completely. In just a few months, Lavina had changed. Clara and Alima had dealt with her, trying to make her look ugly, but even with her messy hair and faded clothes, her beauty still found expression. But that day, she was outside at the turning tap, washing a mountain of dirty clothes, her hands pale from soap when she heard the knock. Bang! Bang! She paused and looked toward the gate. A man stood there. Not just any man, a blind dwarf. Poor, dusty, bent with time and suffering. One of his eyes was completely shut like it never opened. The other blinked slowly, barely seeing. Even Mr. Amos, the old gateman, stepped back nervously. Mr. Amos, Lavina called softly. Someone's at the gate. Amos nodded without looking. I saw him, but honestly, Lavina, I don't think Madam would want to see this kind of person. Just look at him. Before they could decide, Clara's voice tore through the compound. Who is banging my gate like a madman? Amos, open for him before I open it with your head. Amos hesitated, then obeyed. The gate creaked open. The dwarf walked in slowly, holding out a crumpled note in his dusty hand. He trembled as he reached Clara. Good day, madam. My son sent me to you. Clara didn't let him finish. She hissed and spat on the floor like he had brought disease. Look here, she said sharply. Speak fast and leave my house. What's this nonsense? The dwarf held the note higher, still with shaky hands. Please, my son says he's in love. He wants a beautiful young woman to marry. They directed me here. Lavina, curious, reached out and gently took the letter. She read aloud. This is my father. Please, mother of my future wife, accept him. I am in love with a girl called Alima, and I believe she lives in your house. Silence. Then came a scream. What? Alima stormed out in her gold slippers, full face of makeup, holding her iPhone. You must be mad, she yelled. Your blind, irritating, poor, miserable son sent you to come and ask me to marry him? Do you know who I am? She started crying, not out of sadness, but rage that someone dared to put her name next to poverty. Clara shook her head in disgust. What insult! What disgrace! Then she looked at the dwarf, eyes narrow and cold. But I can help your son with a more suitable girl. She turned slowly with a sarcastic grin and pointed at Lavina. There she is. That matches your son perfectly. Take her. They'll both live happily in their world of rags and flies. Lavina's breath caught in her throat. Her hands trembled, and a tear rolled down her cheek. She was shaking, not from fear, but from humiliation. The dwarf smiled gently. Thank you, madam. My son will be happy. He is very eager to marry. When should we come to marry her properly? Clara shook her head. Come back any day. I don't need that trouble in my house anymore. Then, the moment the dwarf stepped out, they all burst into laughter. Clara clapped her hands mockingly. A blind dwarf with a love letter? This is not a movie, it's a joke. Alima laughed so hard, she held her stomach. Imagine me, wife to a crippled blind man's son? Even Satan won't tempt me that far. They laughed until they couldn't breathe. But Lavina stood there, quiet, humiliated, bruised inside. Her tears streamed down continuously. 2 weeks after the blind dwarf's visit, the compound buzzed with unusual noise and excitement. Earlier that week, Clara had quietly told Lavina's mother about the marriage. A man wants to marry your daughter. They may not be rich, but at least she will have peace of mind. She deserves that much. Lavina's mother nodded. She appreciated her for all her effort. The wedding day came. Clara thought it would be a simple, quiet wedding. A few chairs, a faded canopy at the corner of the compound, and maybe 2 cups of Zobo for the neighbors. Lavina's mother, invited for the first time in years, arrived with a wrapper tied around her chest and slippers on her feet, confused but hopeful. But nothing could prepare anyone for what happened next. Vroom! 10 sleek black cars with tinted windows pulled into the compound like a royal parade. Their engines hummed like thunder. They moved in smoothly, quietly, like wealth didn't need to shout to be noticed. The whole neighborhood froze. Beggars who often called Lavina Angel were hanging around the gate, smiling widely. They began to cheer and clap, shouting her name, dancing barefoot in celebration. People from all over the street gathered, pushing to get a glimpse. What's happening? Who owns those cars? Is this a wedding or a presidential visit? Alima rushed to her mother in a panic. Mummy, I think that billionaire finally came for me. But why today of all days? Now people will think he's here for Lavina. Clara's eyes widened, panic creeping in. Something didn't feel right. From the first car, the man who had once come quietly asking for Lavina stepped down, now dressed in a perfectly fitted black suit. Behind him came the dwarf, but this time in a fine agbada, walking tall with help from a golden cane. Behind him were other rich, powerful-looking men in designer clothes. Gasps filled the air. Then the man spoke. His voice was deep, calm, and clear. Good day, everyone. My name is Dave. He turned to the crowd. Some time ago, I came to this compound to ask for Lavina's hand in marriage. I had heard many good things about her kindness, her heart, her strength. But I also saw the hate, the pride, the cruelty around her, so I decided to test the hearts of this house. He paused and smiled. I disguised my own father. Yes, the dwarf many of you mocked and insulted. I asked him to return, not for Lavina, but for Alima. Gasps again. Everyone turned to look at Alima and Clara. Both stood frozen, mouths open. We recorded every word, every laugh, every insult, every offer. The crowd murmured. Today I return as myself, not as a messenger, not as a beggar's son, but as Dave Obina, CEO of Obina Global Group, owner of those 10 cars behind me, and son of the most powerful and humble man I know, my father. The dwarf, he turned and walked up to Lavina. She was trembling, in an old dress, hands still wet from the morning's washing. He knelt. Lavina, you were given to me as an insult. But to me, you are the greatest gift I've ever received. Will you marry me? Lavina couldn't speak. She was crying too hard. But she nodded. Yes, yes, yes! Cheers erupted. Beggars cheered the loudest. Lavina, our queen! The neighborhood shouted. She deserves it. Drums started beating. Children danced. Even birds seemed to sing louder. Clara and Alima? Clara slumped a plastic chair, her hand on her head. Alima broke into tears and ran inside, ashamed beyond words. Somebody shouted, Clara, how market? Another replied, she sold gold to buy dust. Laughter followed. The woman who once spat on the poor was now being mocked by the city. Her pride shattered. Her insult turned into a blessing for the girl she called nobody. The wedding happened right there and then. Dave changed the chairs and canopy in minutes. Designers brought Lavina a brand new gown. She stepped out glowing, radiant, and breathtaking, from rags to royalty. And as the music played and joy filled the air, the city had only one thing to say. From housemaid to billionaire's bride, Lavina, you have shamed the proud. Hello, family! Wow, what a journey! From rejection to royalty, from insult to celebration. Lavina's story reminds us that our true worth isn't based on how we look or what we have, but on the purity of our heart. Moral lessons? Number 1, never judge people by their appearance. Number 2, what you throw away as nothing might be someone else's treasure. Number 3, kindness, humility, and patience will always win in the end. Number 4, God lifts the humble and brings down the proud. To everyone watching, Thank you so much for being a part of this beautiful story. I appreciate your time, your love, and your constant support. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support means everything to me. Share this with someone who needs hope today. I love you all, and God bless you richly. Till next time, stay kind, stay strong, and keep shining, family.